Told y'all about the about laughing at me. I told y'all about that. Superman hat.
Wow, it is. I've got some space now. Thank you, Dr. Ronnie. I can't wait to see how Reverend Dr. Raymont is gonna help fill that up with tremendous possibilities. So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker.
So, what were y'all laughing about? What's so funny?
Cute baby picture.
Oh, so you laugh at cute. I don't believe you.
We delight in it.
It's like that stag face.
Jokes. So, it's very interesting that. So one of the reasons why I've been showing baby pictures for the last couple of weeks is because it's very funny that, Dr. Ronnie even mentioned this idea of letting stuff go to move into what's to be. Because I've been doing a lot of thinking about how I ended up where I am. And every now and then, those baby pictures vanish. They were missing for many years, and then one day my mother dropped them or something. I said, whoa, who is that? She said, oh, these are your other baby pictures. What did y'all do to me? What made me make these faces? So she said, well, you can have them if you want them, right? So I took them. And every now and then, I'll put them somewhere and then I'll forget about them. And then they'll show up again. Not because I was looking for them, but I'm looking for something else, or I'm unpacking something, or I'm packing something. And there are the baby pictures again. And one of the reasons why they're meaningful to me is because they remind me of the past, that and the story, that and the trauma, that and all this other stuff that used to be part of my life as a regular, everyday condition. And so now I look at them and I see the baby that is to be born in 2020 and 2021. And so I see this look in his eye like, really? You want to hold on to that? Or really? You're going to bring that to me today? You do know that it's so 2019. Right? So there's a different story that I get to tell myself. So I just wanted to share with you, part of this idea of, one, what was doesn't have to be what is. Every single person in here has something, no matter how young you are or how toka you may be. Just messing with Dedra. But no matter how young or where in the spectrum you are in this thing called age, it doesn't matter. Everybody in here has something that has been a moment of anger or pain or trauma or something that has caused us angst. And we don't have to let that be the thing that drives us forward into whatever our next element of life is going to be. And remember this, because I'm going to come back to this idea, so table that for a moment. In this moment, let's play a game. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to answer this question for Reverend Ray. There's one part of Sunday service for me that is the very most difficult. Anybody want to give a guess on what is the most difficult thing about me doing this thing?
Self-reflection.
Somebody said it.
Self-reflection.
Starting. What is the very first thing that's going to come out of my mouth? Because anybody who knows me knows that there are 4,629 things all rushing to this thing to be said in the same exact moment. So trying to figure out what is the very first thing I'm going to say, knowing that each word has power and each thing that I am speaking is creating, is manifesting, is inspiring, or is putting somebody to sleep. But I'm watching just in case, so if somebody starts to doze. So today, we're talking about Kwanzaa, right? And specifically, we're talking about Kwanzaa in light of this thing we do as CSL. But before we get there, for those who are close enough to read with me, why have a holiday or holy day if not to ground in some form of governing practices and principles? The season of light celebration of Kwanzaa reminds us to be open-minded and open-hearted enough to join in all the ways that honor our diversity and to be inclusive. We get to come together and find strength and wonder in the many ways Spirit as us incarnates itself as diversity. Holidays are most often expressed through particular filters that can be exclusionary. Kwanzaa as a celebratory response by African Americans is a time of family and community unity. A time for learning, for cultural and social awareness, and much, 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 much more. This year, let us as a community take the opportunity to learn ways we can be guided in our own lives by practicing principles, as well as about ways to support those in our beloved community who find this to be far more than just an end-of-year celebration or holiday. Now, I specifically mention that because the vast majority of CSL, no matter where it is, the vast majority is white. And when we have holidays and celebrations, etc., it is very often through that filter. But if we're going to talk about how Spirit is demonstrating and manifesting, then we understand, one, diversity already is. It's not something we have to create. But inclusion is something different. For example, how many atheists do you know who light a menorah for Hanukkah? Now because Nancy gave me a menorah last Sunday, I can light it in honor of my Jewish brothers and sisters and non-gender conforming Jewish folks that I know, but I am not Jewish. So I can honor what it represents, but the holiday, the celebration, the miracle of that community and culture is not my community and culture. How many atheists celebrate Christmas the way Christians celebrate Christmas? How many straight people attend Pride in June to celebrate pride for themselves? You understand what I'm saying? So it is extremely important that we understand that Spirit is showing up in a variety of ways, and until we get to this idea or this level of consciousness where we embrace, not tolerate, embrace and accept how God, Spirit, the universe, the one mind, life itself is showing up in, through, and as everything, then on some level we are excluding. Wrong way. Don't laugh at me, don't. So Ernest Holmes said in his sermon by the sea, how important it is that each one of us in our simple way shall live from God to God, with God, in God, and to each other, which I would say, and to each other as God. This is why we are here, and we are taking back with us, I trust, a vision and an inspiration, something beyond a hope and a longing, that the living Spirit shall through us walk anew in its own creation, and a new glory comes with a new dawn. Isn't it funny that, I gotta say, Reverend Dr. Ronnie. Dr. Ronnie talked about being pulled, and this new vision of our lives. And then Holmes, in 1959, was saying the same thing at a Sillamar, Sermon by the Sea. Are we really ready for that, though? Are we ready to step into being what we say we want to be? Are we ready to step into being an inclusive community? One where we understand what it means to not just welcome folks, but to affirm folks. Because it's a totally different thing for someone to walk through these doors and feel welcomed. It's a totally different thing to read the Science of Mind magazine or the textbook or take a class and hear in the words, Spirit is all there is. There's one life, one power, one presence, God, the good, omnipotent, love, light, joy, power, presence, woo, team, yay. But if each individual, as they are showing up, as Spirit is showing up, does not feel affirmed, doesn't feel seen, doesn't feel recognized, why would they come? If we had no interpreters, what point does it make for a deaf person to come here? Does it make any point? Is there any reason? Do they feel welcome? Lisa and Reverend Mo can greet them and offer them cookies and ice cream and, I'm naming my favorite stuff. They can offer them whatever they want to offer them, hugs and handshakes and all kind of stuff. But if you are not talking their language, they're not included. So what work needs to be done in order to be inclusive, affirming? Now, I'm specifically mentioning this stuff, and trust there's a reason, but before I get to the actual Kwanzaa stuff, there's a reason, because I want us to understand that in the culture of this country, this philosophy is a perfect tool to combat, to cause it to be released and fade away, sexism, racism, homophobia, Islamophobia, etc., 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 etc. We know in this philosophy, we understand what it means to say God is all there is. We understand what it means to practice oneness. We understand what it means to dive deep into this thing where it's not just love, syrupy, syrupy, syrupy love, but it's agape. I love you simply because. Not because of what you give me, not because of who you, but just because it is without condition. I love you. I don't have to know you. I love you. In the world we live in right now, this is an issue. On one way, shape, or form, it's an issue. And when we get to this idea of Kwanzaa, because I run into a lot of people who say, well, you know, Ray, why do black folks even need, why do you need your own holiday? Can't you just do Christmas? Yeah, we do. Some of us do Christmas. And yet, why can't African Americans, people of color, have a specific time of year set aside to focus on certain governing principles? Well, you have February. Okay, I'm going to give you that for a second, but how old is that? Because if we trace Christmas back, how old is Christmas? How old is Hanukkah? How old is winter solstice? How old are those? Where's the African American representation of that? There isn't one. Until someone said, now is the time. Oh, sort of like what we are doing as a community, saying, now is the time to shed this space and move beyond this. Now is the time to reach out beyond these walls and serve other members of the community outside. Now is the time to let go of the old story of small and closed and this and that. Now is the time to be pulled by the vision of what this community can be. Now is, oh, you mean like that. But it comes down to us getting really, really honest with what we are, what we are willing to do to fix it, to heal it. For those of us who are in this teaching, we say there's nothing that needs to be healed, only
Revealed.
there's nothing that needs to be healed, only
Revealed.
but what needs to be revealed? Truth. That's fine. So what is the truth about each and every one of us? What is the truth that governs the lives that we live? What is the truth that we choose to walk upon going into the new year? That's what it comes down to. So in How to Use the Science of Mind, it says, a philosophy of unity permits many mentalities, but only one mind. Okay, so one mind, God's mind, and yet there can be many ways that that one mind expresses itself. Hanukkah, winter solstice, Christmas. Oh, so you mean there is space. Oh, okay, thank you. innumerable individualized points in the creative consciousness of an absolute, which always remains one, undivided and indivisible unity. No matter what, no matter how these things see another person, no matter what or how these things hear another person, no matter what or how these things touch another person, ultimately we are seeing God with God's eyes. We are hearing God with God's ears. We are touching God with God's hands. And until we can anchor into that, no practice, no principle is really going to set us free the way it could. Because we're always riding the bike with training wheels. And so the training wheels are always going to be there to stabilize us, rather than ride free. In observations, if there is in life, and there must be, something which causes evolution out of life itself, why should it not follow that there is something within us that causes us to evolve, to progress? And our very problems then are merely situations which confront us with the opportunity for greater and greater self-expression. But do we see it that way? No. Are we willing to, though? Are we willing to see that whatever problem is showing up is an opportunity for us to grow, to shift, to evolve? In the same way that I used the example before, 2 plus 2, that's a problem, right? Well, at least when I was in school, that's the way that, and I probably shouldn't be using math terms right now, because anyhow, but I'm going to keep on going, and I'll probably get scolded later, but it's all good. But when I was in school, my math instructor said, so I want you to do the 20 problems that are on the board. And there were problems like, 12 minus 6, 2 times 4, 6 divided by 3. These were the problems. And we knew that the teacher would not be giving us these problems if on some level we did not either have the solution or could find the solution. What if it's the exact same way with every problem in our lives? That the fact that there is something showing up in our lives means that either we already have the solution and we just have to shift it, or we have to yield and allow the solution to pull itself forward to be. What if? So what if it's a level of consciousness? What if? So in Kwanzaa, there are governing principles and practices, right? And specifically, there are 7, one for each day. Day 1, umoja, unity, the importance of family, community, nation, and race. Now, while this is important for everybody, yes, 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 we must understand that there is a level of consciousness because of systemic racism that makes this that much more meaningful and important for African Americans. And if we as a community are unwilling to grow into that, to recognize that, then every affinity group that comes up, whether it's the LGBTQ affinity group, people of color, women, men, etc., none of them are going to make any difference other than the people going into their respective groups and saying blah, 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 but when we come together, we're still not going to feel affirmed, seen, or recognized. So it's extremely important to understand why this is important to those who practice it. Because not all black people practice this. So a black guy recently on my Facebook page put something on the page about why black people shouldn't, because the founder of this, because of his shady background. And I said, so explain something to me. Name someone, just for the sake of this, name someone who is one of the most heinous people that you could think of in existence.
Hitler.
Hitler. Let's go with Hitler.
Same thing.
What if, in the process of all that Hitler was doing, as heinous and evil and as it was, what if somewhere in there he found the cure for cancer? Would we deny people the cure for cancer because of everything else that he did? See, we have this idea that we cannot separate person from product. And while the person may not have been the most outstanding or whatever, the practice, what has been created, is still worth practicing. The Bible was created by a lot of folks, and regardless of what position we hold on it, it holds value. So the important thing for us as a community to recognize is, how are we affirming the members of this community who may practice this, who may trying to think of the right word I want to use, who may not practice Kwanzaa specifically, but acknowledge that in the community, unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith are important. And they're important to the community as a general, because in CSL we have the Declaration of Principles. And I got this specifically from Science of Mind Spiritual Center, LA, just because the way they broke it down, they put the one God and then declaration, everything is spirit and then declaration, etc., right? And part of this is supposed to be the governing principles of what we do as CSL, religious science and science of mind. And I want to look at these ones specifically, because personal freedom aligns with Nia and purpose. Unity of all life. I believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. That's Umoja. So it's not like we're talking about two completely separate ideas or concepts. Because ultimately, if there is only God, there's only one Spirit, there's only one power, there's only one presence, then how it's showing up in every faith, tradition, must have something where it resonates and recognizes itself. There's only one. But once again, if we as a community aren't grounding ourselves in what it means to practice our own spiritual practices and principles, then when someone else is recognizing another tradition, someone says, well, why do you do that? Why do you have Baha'i and Confucianism and Christianity and Native American tradition? Like, why do you have those? Is that what you practice? It's not specifically what we practice, but we honor. Because if God is all there is, then that means that which it is showing up in, through, and as, on some level, each of these traditions. In, through each and every tradition. The season of light isn't just about the filter that this country tends to push everything through. Remember a couple of months ago I asked you, think about the number of television shows or movies that star black people that aren't about slavery, Dr. King, civil rights, drugs and gangs. And how many do you come up with? How many romantic comedies are there? How many, and comedies, take comedies off, but romantic comedies, drama, thriller, police stories. So as a country, we push a certain thing. And our call in this philosophy is to say, recognizing that there is only that which God is, recognizing that there is only one life, and that life is God's life, and that life is whatever we're saying that life is. That life demonstrates itself as purpose and creativity and cooperative economics. How am I spending my money? How am I cycling my money? How am I circulating my money? How am I demonstrating my purpose? And how am I recognizing and honoring others who have their own path or way of expressing or way of celebrating? Do I have to be LGBTQ to recognize and affirm someone who is? No. As a cisgender man, am I not able to honor and acknowledge those of the trans community? Do I have to be white too? Do I have to be black too? Do I have to be Asian too? Or can I anchor in and say there is room for everyone? And take it upon myself to do whatever it is I need to do to learn about my neighbors, to learn about the other people in the community, what they practice, how they practice, who they are. Because we see faces every Sunday. And the only way we're going to move into 2020 as a new vision or as a new community is for real by getting to know, getting to be one with, getting to celebrate that oneness together. Real quick, I want to read something. This is a commentary by the founder of Kwanzaa. He says, Kwanzaa is a time of serious and sustained remembrance, reflection, and recommitment. It calls on us to sit down and to meditate deeply on the awesome meaning and responsibility of being African in our community, society, and the world. It requires us to remember that we are heirs and custodians of a great legacy, and we must bear the glory, beauty, and burden of that legacy with strength, dignity, and determination. Now, I wanted to specifically read that because I want to make sure it's very clear. Because there are others in other places who are going to assimilate this into the culture. And it is important to understand that that is not the spiritual thing to do. Do we understand why it's not the spiritual thing to do? Is the question. And I'm not answering that question right now. But if it's a question for yourself to answer. Do I know what it means to take and assimilate this tradition into mainstream culture? And if I don't, then research. Why was it, or why is it inappropriate for Madonna to wear a Native American headdress? Right? So just that idea, marinating on that. Because the only way we are going to leave this box in the basement and have windows and a classroom for adults and kids of various ages and have community functions happening in our center versus us having to go to others is if we stretch our consciousness to that point. I'm sure you've heard of Agape, Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith. So they send an email out every day with meditations and contemplations, etc. And Joan Elston McCullough sent this out, wrote this, but it was sent out, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday. And I selected a portion of it because I thought it was particularly relevant. So she quoted Joel Goldsmith, God must become an activity in our consciousness. God must become an activity in our consciousness. What does it look like in our lives daily when God is the activity, when love is the activity, when light is the activity of our consciousness? Not how much money we have or don't have. That's not the governing thing in our consciousness. Not how sick or well or weight-wise or... That's not the governing thing in our consciousness. But God is the governing thing. Life is the governing thing in our consciousness. What changes? She goes on to say, since we live in a unified field, our personal change can create a shift on the planet. To whom much is given, much is required. And as Uncle Ben told Peter Parker, with great power comes responsibility. Since we live in a unified field, our personal change. Why do we think that the founder of Kwanzaa said it is a time of remembrance, reflection, recommitment? And then he says, going about the legacy with strength and dignity, because he understands that when, as a community, black people come together in this unified field of, then change happens. We're not practicing this as a spiritual teaching, though. We're not. We're comfortable. And so we don't up-level it to that degree. Because most of us, and I don't mean the people in this room, because I know the majority of people in this room are the enlightened folks. I'm saying people in general. The majority of us do not live in a way where we understand that our personal change creates a shift. Because let's piggyback for a moment, go back to Dr. Ronnie's meditation. Suppose I don't want to. Suppose she's up here and she's guiding the meditation, and in my mind I'm thinking, but I don't want to let go. I like the story that I've been telling for the last 10 years. I'm comfortable with that lover that I have been in deep committed relationship because depression and I love each other. You're telling me to let go? I don't want to let go. You're telling me that scarcity, because I'm in a polyamorous relationship, scarcity and depression go hand in hand with me. You're trying to tell me to let them go? I don't want to, because then I'll be alone. And I don't know what it's like to be alone, so I'd rather keep them close by. So I don't change. I take her meditation to heart, and I carry that on with me. Do we understand that that refusal to change also affects what will or will not shift on the planet? Talk about responsibility. Don is doing all this praying and meditating, and Michael's doing all this praying and meditating to transform the planet, and here's Ray. Come on, listen. I don't want to let go. Just saying. Goes on to say, our transformation can be so powerful that it can change the universe exponentially, as Jesus the Christ did. Our transformation can be so powerful that it can change the universe exponentially. What are we thinking and doing in this now present moment that will change the trajectory of the planet, of all consciousness on the planet? What are we right now? And in this now moment, what are we right now? And what are we right now? And Monday morning and Monday afternoon, what are we holding in consciousness? Are we holding in consciousness the ideas of what it means to have a purpose? What it means to have compassion? What it means to take responsibility? What it means to work together? What it means to... Are we moving forward in that consciousness? Are we moving forward in the consciousness of what it means to... I don't know any white people, like as friends, so I want to get to know you. Is that what it means? Something so oddly strange, but is that what it means? Because it's one thing to say, I know black people. It's a completely different thing to say, and we're friends. It's a completely different consciousness. It's one thing to say, we are an open and inclusive community. But if members of marginalized groups were to come here, and they have, and many have not come back, what's going on? What is it that what do I need to do? What do I need to undo? What do I need to release? What do I need to let go? So that the vision of being an open and inclusive community is what's pulling me forward. Is what's pulling us forward. Just saying. As we're moving in, this is the last Sunday of the year. Starting next Sunday, it's 2020. In 2020, vision is basically the concept of what we're moving into. And so for 2020, every person that walks through these doors should feel like they're home. That when Sue is not here, Sue Italiano, that's what I'm talking about, because we know the other Sue. When she's not here, I want to know where she is. One Sunday? Okay. 4 Sundays? We haven't seen her in 4 Sundays. Somebody know where she is? I want us to be that community. I want us to know that when someone is not here, we know and we have the means to check up on people. Otherwise, we're just here for our own self-gratification. And that's spiritual, the M word. See me after service if you don't know what I'm talking about. But that's what that is. And it's time for us to graduate beyond that, elevate beyond that, evolve beyond that, so that we can actually walk the walk of why we're here. Let's anchor in prayer. Knowing that that which spirit is all there is, then I know that that which is in the mind of God is already fully formed and functioning. Knowing that these words are coming from Spirit, then I know that that which Spirit is already knows what I am going to say. And because Spirit already knows what I'm going to say, I begin at the end. Amen. Amen, that I know this is a beloved community that is doing right here and right now the work necessary to shift consciousness on this planet. Amen, that I know each and every person that comes here feels what it is to be in beloved community and enjoys it to such a degree that they are willing to step up and be elected and work on the board. They are willing to step up and serve as volunteers for SEVA. They are willing to step up and be chairpersons who are leading and moving and shifting whatever needs to be moved and shifted in this community. Amen. Amen, that I know that we have a working budget that is more than $1 million so that we are able to do more than enough in this community and the entirety of the greater Baltimore area. Amen, that I know that every man, woman, and child in the greater Baltimore area knows what CSL Greater Baltimore is. Whether they come here or not, they know. They know the light that we represent when we go and volunteer. They know the light that we represent when we partner with other communities and organizations. They know who and what we are, not because we have a banner, not because we wear a shirt, but because we are God in the flesh, walking the walk, talking the talk, and loving as love does. Amen. Amen, that I know that as we surrender this old consciousness of 2019 and before, that we open up and avail ourselves to the vision of Spirit, pulling itself into greater and greater and greater levels of awareness and being. Eternally open at the top, amen. Individually open at the top, amen. So open at the top that I know the wealth and prosperity, the joy and the health of creation itself is mine. Amen. Amen, that I know because it is mine and because God is all there is, I know that this truth is the truth for everyone in this room. There is only one power and one presence, that which is God, incarnating itself in, through, and as everyone and everything. Amen. Amen, that I surrender this in gratitude into the law, knowing that the law was already working, manifesting, creating, and demonstrating this very prayer, because this prayer is the prayer praying itself in, through, and as me. And knowing that, I know it is already so. And so together as a beloved community, we anchor this declaration knowing that the universe is right now conspiring for its own good in, through, and as every one of us. And we say, and so it is. Amen, Ashe, Aho, Shalom.
Okay.